You're listening to Linked AM. Tell your story on Linked Live and get noticed. You're listening to Carl Wolfenden on the Business Class Show and is not always affiliated with the guests and the topics discussed. Any financial statements are the opinions of the individual, and you should seek professional advice before making any decisions. Upgrade your listening to Business Class, the show that puts you in the big leather comfy seats. So sit back and enjoy our take on the trending business issues of the week.
Howdy, folks. Here he is, the Texas Brit, the guy with the stiff upper lip, filling his 10-gallon hat and his cowboy boots, Carl Wolfenden.
Good morning, and welcome to Linked AM here on Business Class News. And oh my goodness, well, you can tell I have had a haircut. Things are starting to get a bit better now. As such, I was allowed to go out of the front door, go down the street and go to my favorite barbers and actually have a haircut. And they trim my eyebrows and all that good stuff. So the caveman look has kind of gone out. But what it made me think about was we all need partners. We've got partners in our lives, our relationships as such, but in business and small businesses, they all need customers, and businesses need partners. If I didn't have a haircut, then my goodness, I'd be, well, I don't know if you'd ever see my face if I didn't have a haircut. So we had to have a small business. He's a great barber that I have I usually do it every 3 weeks, but I've not been able to get out there. And it made me think, oh my goodness, that is what we've got to think about, of how do we as a business start to bring people in that are proper partners that can help us as such. And so I've got a great friend of mine that I turned to and I said, will you please come on the show? Because not only do you have a semi-English accent and it'll make me sound cool as well, you've got a great expanse of experience in this area. And of course, that person is Carlo Breda, who's the CEO of Gorilla Technologies. And they're specialists in partnering with their clients to make them successful. So Carlo, thank you for joining me this morning. And what a great background you've got there. You got a really good setup there, Carlo.
Thank you very much, Carl. Really glad to be here.
Well, I mean, as I was just explaining, you don't realize, well, I think we have to start realizing this, that really to get through some of the challenges that we've got ahead of us. And it's always been the same, really. It's just come to a head this past, few months where everybody's like realizing that they can't do everything on their own. It's very important for people to have good partnerships, isn't it, in business?
It really is. Partnerships are so fundamental, and they're actually ingrained in our culture. They're ingrained in our human DNA. We're designed to have partnerships. We, as a human species, have succeeded because of our ability to form partnerships and to form the right kind of bonds in society. And as time went on, we started to get a little bit more sophisticated around partnerships and what these mean. Partnerships start off with your husband or your wife. That is a partnership. It's probably the most core partnership you're going to have in your life. But beyond that, there's partnerships in everything. There are partnerships in alliances between governments for their defense. There are partnerships in every line of almost every line of business that I can think of. If you go to your local McDonald's, that's very likely to be a partnership. It's likely to be a franchise, which is a form of a partnership. If you go and fuel up and get your gas in at an Esso Exxon station, that's also a franchise, and it's also a partnership. The world that I come from is the technology world. And in our world, partnerships are just like so fundamental. People don't realize that the whole IT economy, it's trillions and trillions of dollars, 70% of which goes through partnerships. So partnerships really are what makes the world go around, especially in technology.
Well, you talk about that you're in that technology space, and so as you rightly say, you've got your manufacturers, and then you've got your service, implementation, etc. But at the end of the day, if you don't have those channels to really go and find the right customers as such, because I think there's something that we've talked about in the past, is that the challenges that are out there. If you don't have the right partner, you can actually fall foul of falling to the competitor because you haven't got the know-how, etc. But with Gorilla, you guys have got thought leadership, you've got the strategies, you've got a whole process, haven't you, that you've developed over the past few years. I mean, it's something that's evolved, hasn't it?
It really has. I've been doing the same job for nearly 30 years, 27 years, I think, going on to 28. I wake up in the morning and I run to work. I love it. These days I run to my cabin at the back of my yard because of COVID, but I still wake up with the same kind of enthusiasm because partnering is not boring. Partnering is just so exciting. Within our industry, it's like I said, what drives it forward. It's absolutely essential, and there are many kinds of partnerships within our industry, and we refer to them as channel because it is a channel. It is a form of distribution, of sales distribution, and there are so many different kinds of channel partnerships, and often people don't realize how sophisticated that is. What I like about the IT sector is that we've taken it to a fine art. It's actually a science. It's a form of cultural engineering, and it's extremely effective. Other verticals, other industry segments have partnerships. They haven't actually fine-tuned the whole process quite as much as we have done in the technology sector. And I'm very proud that our company Gorilla has been there from the dawn, from the early ages of partnering in technology. We were there at the very beginning. Right at the beginning, actually the very first nucleus of the business for Gorilla Corporation, which is an American company, was actually in the UK. And we were at the very beginning, before we pivoted, we were a pan-European research company. And technology vendors would come to us and they would, the thing that they would ask us to research the most was partnerships. And they would say, Carlo, can you help us figure out what kind of dealers we would need in such a geography? Or what would be the best kind of dealers? Or what should we ask the dealers to do for us? Or how could we entice them and make them interested in reselling our product or service? And eventually that became like monothematic. It was the kind of thing that vendors would ask us the most. At which point I thought, okay, well, this is a massive business. And so we kind of pivoted and turned ourselves around and became actually the very first channel development agency in the world. And from those early days, we decided to relocate to the United States and become an American company. So now we're a Delaware-based organization, and we're global, actually. I'm based out of San Francisco, but we have an office in Dallas and many other places.
Well, I love hearing those stories because that's what we're all about here on Business Class News, is to show that you've got to look for opportunity. And what you just said there, you were in a vertical that you saw an opportunity, and then you pivoted, and you were nimble and flexible to be able to turn that into a great positive. And I think a lot of businesses and executives really have to listen to that and go, well, now we're in an unusual time where maybe I'm going to have to do the same. I've got to listen to what the customers are saying. And say, okay, I can actually use what my knowledge and experience and then deliver a service and a sort of a expertise that really are going to benefit. And that will then hopefully do like you did, and you made a whole new business out of it, new business line out of it.
Absolutely. And we've become the dominant player now globally for this line of business because we pioneered it. So we are the longest established partner marketing agency in the world, and we're very, very proud of that. We're very happy. We've been able to satisfy clients now for a very, very long time. But what I want to share with you is you actually hit the nail on the head with regards to the idea of pivoting. Pivoting is something that, as a business leader, you have to be prepared to do all the time. And when we talk about channel in particular, Pivoting is the name of the game, because channel is evolving all the time because technology is evolving, right? So if you look back in time, in the earlier days, it was a demand-driven economy. So I'm talking about the early stages of the PC. So in those days, nobody had a computer. I don't know if you might remember that. I certainly do. And in these early days, it was just so exciting. Everybody was wanting to buy this technology. It was buying my first computer, buying my first network, buying my first server, and then getting a better server, and then getting my first data center, and then evolving that data center. Now we got to a stage that, of course, since a long time, that there's been the technology kept on evolving at such a rate and sophistication that new solutions have come out. The very sophisticated solutions that are very specific and needs particular skill sets. So like partners that were selling servers or laptops because there was so much demand, they're going to run out of business unless they pivot. And their pivot needs to be, okay, how do we become much more solution oriented? How do we really start to add value to the customer, since it's no longer about shifting boxes and delivering a box with a shiny server to your door? It's now a different business. Now people want to know, how can they have the best artificial intelligence solutions? How can they have robotic process automation? How can they have hyper-converged data center storage solutions to drive efficiency? How can they get the most out of virtualization? And so there's been an enormous amount of evolution in the channel. And channel partners have had to constantly have to reinvent themselves. They've moved from being transactional to being highly solution oriented. Then it's relentless, Carl. It's relentless, and but that's what's exciting about it, right? So yeah, go right ahead.
No, I was going to say what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, how many businesses that I come across in my day-to-day basis, and they go, well, now I used to buy big, storage, at the server storage, and put different blades in, etc. Now I'm turning everything into the cloud. But the problem is, then you got to start thinking about security, and because security has to go onto the cloud, and so it's now not just about, as you say, a box. It's about how do you transition everything, through whatever platform you're looking at. I mean, these data scientists that are now looking at that AI that you're talking about, they're saying, I've got to have more capacity, I've got to have more access, and I've got to take it from my development team to productivity. So how do I take it through? So you need those specialists and those channels to be able to supply those different elements of a project. And by the sounds of it, people can turn to Gorilla and say, hey, this is my challenge. Now, how do I get to those people that have got those challenges, and you know how to get to them?
Right. Yes. And that opens up the whole game of channel marketing. And the way it's actually named these days is co-marketing, because it's about collaborative marketing with your partners. And that's something that we do as an organization, and we do that globally. That's one of the big benefits that vendors consider when choosing us, is that we're able to actually run a project on a global basis and support partners if it's a large organization that has partners throughout the world, in China, India, Japan, Germany, Italy. We're the guys that can actually take a concept and materialize it globally for hundreds or thousands of channel partners. And we do this for many large household sort of names that everybody would recognize. And there's a fine art in this whole thing of channel marketing. Why I find it so interesting is because we get the chance, and the vendor gets a chance to really do something powerful and effective, and in the spirit of partnership. When you do channel co-marketing, it really is where the spirit of partnerships becomes manifest. You see, at that point, you actually treat your partner not just as a conduit of sales, but as a real partner. Yep. Somebody that you can sit around at the table and say, okay, let's mount a campaign. What kind of customers are you really looking for? What kind of voice do you want to have? How do you want to talk to these partners? What kind what kind of campaigns would suit, and how can we help you to drive those campaigns so that we can make more money together?
Well, it's more like, well, I'm listening to you and you talk about it being an art, but there's a science to it as well. We've talked about offline before the show, etc. We talk about those 4 elements of, I think, the partnership life cycle, isn't it? That you talk about. There's the strategies. What are the reasons why you need to have those people in place, those partnerships, those channels, etc. And then we look at goal setting, and I think you've got to look at those goal settings and make sure they're realistic, and then enablement. How do you enable it, and then the results. So can you talk a little bit about those 4 areas? So because I think that's it's a kind of a core piece to your process, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a core piece of our process, and you're right. There is a process, and it is kind of scientific, and it's mathematical, right? So there's that. I think from a strategy perspective, one of the things that folks don't always realize is that there are so many different kinds of partners that you can bring in for different reasons. For example, I think when you set out with your strategy line of thinking, the first thing that you want to think about is about your customer and how the customer wants to interact with your brand. So how do they want to inform themselves about your solution? That may be a channel, right? It may be an influencer channel. So they may find that maybe they want to inform themselves by looking at analyst reports, right? That's, in a sense, it's a channel. It's an influencer channel. It's not a channel that you can necessarily pay to give advice to, so that they can work for you. But you can support them by giving them information, and treating them as a partner is actually very important. Then there's how will the customer actually want to transact? Do they want to? It's not what you think about how you want to transact with the customer. It's how the customer really want to transact with you. So do they want to buy it off the website? Maybe they want to buy it off the website, or maybe they want to buy it from a trusted partner, because maybe they don't want to buy it from you directly. Let's say, for example, that you're a bank. You're going to have your trusted advisor. You're going to have your trusted technology advisor. The first thing you'll do is that you'll talk to your technology advisor. It may be your local value-add reseller. It may be your local solution provider. It may be your local cybersecurity consultant that provides that level of trust. That's going to be your source. You're not going to pick up the phone and call IBM and say, this is what I want. It's hardly ever it works like that. So the advisors are another form of channel. And they may well transact as well. And then another form of channel yet is the one that actually implements it for you. I'll give you an example. A lot of people will buy off the web these days. A lot of solutions are website solutions, web-oriented solutions like Salesforce.com or any online CRM or QuickBooks or stuff like that, right? Or complex ERP solutions even, right? You can buy them almost always directly from the vendor on the website. But then you will almost always need somebody to come in and configure them and implement them and train your people. Because buying a complex solution like a complex CRM and just paying with your credit card, fine, but good luck on the implementation. You can't do it on your own. It's not practical. It's not realistic. Most companies, if not almost all, they need to rely on a local consultant to come in and support them, and that's another form of partner. And all these things are important things to consider when you set out on devising the channel strategy. Who do you need? How many of these do you need? Where do you need them? What verticals you want to focus? How many per vertical and how many per geo? And what level of business do you think you can achieve with each one within each of these subsegments?
Which all dovetails into, dare I say the word budget? I mean, and you've got to look at, okay, what is the project? Because each customer has their own needs and sort of wants as such. So yes, you've got the box and you've got the technology, but as you say, if you bring in your trusted advisor, your VAR or your sort of third party reseller, etc., to come in, then they all have to fit together to make sure that you have the outcome, which is the result that you want. And then if you're not careful, your budget can run away from you. So I suppose again, you can help with making sure everything is put into place. And there's always going to be scope creep, as we all used to call it. But it's very important to have that control.
It is extremely important, and I'm so glad that you bring up the point of budget, because it's a big issue, and it's a conceptual issue that a lot of people, when they set out to build a channel, they set out to build a channel because the idea is that it's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Because basically, what's the option? You either have an army of direct salespeople, and that is, we know, extremely expensive, because direct salespeople need to be skilled, consultative these days, and that kind of skill set is super expensive. So that's one option. And so therefore, often the smart entrepreneur says, well, you know what, I'm going to set up a channel, because then I pay them on commission only, right? And that's kind of only a half-baked idea, because actually it doesn't work like that. Yes, the channel partner is going to be commission only, essentially, because they'll take a percentage of the margin, right, of the cost of sale. So you can have a nice, elegant business with basically a nicely controlled, cost of goods sold, without having a big payroll, right? But you do need to manage your channel partners, and that is usually the mistake that most manufacturers or vendors make, is that they don't consider the cost of coverage of those partners. Partners, and this is the point. The partnerships are relationships. They have to be cultivated. They have to be cared for. There has to be real engagement at a business executive level, at the operational level, at the field rep level. So there has to be that coverage level. And when that doesn't happen, the partnerships won't work. And if I can say very briefly, about 5 years ago, 5 to 8 years ago, it was the time that everybody truly believed that you could drive your channel out of electronically out of a portal.
Right.
And so everybody thought, you know what, I have a portal, and people will come in and they'll download my assets, and they'll pull out the data sheets, and they'll log their leads and their deals, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's all electronic, and I don't need anybody to manage a channel. It's going to happen by itself. And guess what happens? It doesn't happen. Why? Because the resellers are busy. They're not bad people. They're lovely people. We're just like we're all resellers in a way.
Right.
But they're busy. They're busy, and they can't go into your website, into your portal, and download and get galvanized. And they've got many other technology vendors that they're working with. Don't forget, the partnerships is not a one-to-one. There's a many-to-many.
Yep.
The vendor has many partners, and the partner has many vendors, right? So how are you going to get that mind share and that bandwidth if you just imagine that relationship to be purely electronic? It's just not realistic, and it doesn't work. It does not work. So at the end of the day, human relationships are really there. They're coming back, and vendors are waking up to that. And so therefore, when you mention budget, it's a really important point that you raise, because what's important is to go into the channel knowing that there is going to be a cost of creating, maintaining, and fostering and cultivating that channel. It's not just the commission on the sale that they get.
I'm so glad that we're touching on this, because this is a technology segment, but at the same time, and I've been saying this for years, because I was an enterprise, SaaS sales guy. I was in with General Motors. I was in with EDS. I was in a lot of the big guys, and I'd go in there, and it was relationship consultative selling. That's what I really thrived on, and I built relationships, etc. And then I saw that go away. I was seeing this thing of, as you say, 5 years ago. I mean, I could see it before then. It was, okay, build it and they will come. Well, as you say, it's like any channel, isn't it? Any VAR, you're vying for that piece of business, and why should I stand out better than anybody else, etc. And you've got to have that trust of the buyer. Yeah. You've got to have the trust that the seller or the partner that you've got actually knows what's best for you as such. Yeah. So I think that is, again, one of the biggest things, and we talked about it, enablement, the roles and the structure and the tracking. Well, that it has to be human. I mean, yeah, there's AI these days, but AI has to be managed by humans. It's garbage in, garbage out. We've always talked about that. I interviewed an author the other day that wrote a book about that, and that's the problem. You've got to have that human interaction to know the client, know the project, and then know what is the best elements to put in, and that's what Gorilla does. I know that for a fact by talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and if I can pick up on what you mentioned here about AI, it's an interesting topic for me, and I see that now coming into the channel in a very interesting manner, and certainly we at Gorilla have we're although we're predominantly a service agency, we also grow by acquisition and we acquire software businesses. And as part of our technology roadmap, we've also spent some time and money and effort on developing our own AI solution. And what we have, and this is the way I think it plays, right? So with Channel, ultimately, as we said, it's a relationship thing, and it's deeply. This is going back to what's the deep DNA of what makes us humans and how we thrive from supporting each other and how we thrive by pleasing each other, and it really, I think partnerships are about having each other's back, right? And that's a human thing, right? But I'm not saying that automation is not good, and I'm not saying that web portals are not good. They're essential. They're part of the plumbing. They're part of the infrastructure. Now, the way that we've designed AI is to deal with inquiries in a very interesting way. So the way that we do it is, consider, first of all, when you have your partner channel, it's like a pyramid. The top of the channel is going to be your biggest performers that drive the majority of the revenue. Then below that, there's that middle range of really good partners that could do so much better. And if you invest time in them, they'll give you back. And then there's the lower level of partner that doesn't really get much done, right? Now, within that whole structure, what really helps, what we found, is what we've designed is basically a AI chatbot that it's a web chatbot, but unlike most web agents, it's not one that is reactive and that says, "Oh, hi, how can I help you?" No, our chatbot knows everything about you as you get there. And how do we do that? It's not creepy. It's because you're a partner, right?
Yeah.
A partner, you already share so much information with us. We're trading partners. So the company knows how much you're selling of the different products, what verticals you go into. Maybe it might be finance and banking or education oriented or things like that. So our chatbot is informed. So when you arrive, Carl, let's say the chatbot will say, "Hey, Carl, thanks for coming back to the portal. I see that you're still finance and banking oriented. Did you see that we've got these particular campaigns that might be suitable for you? And did you know, Carl, that you've got some marketing development funds attributed to your name that you can actually expense against this project? How about you do that?" Right? So it's a way for the partner to get engaged in a very informed manner. And the thing about our chatbot, it's an extremely conversational chatbot. So you wouldn't know that it's actually a bot. I mean, it looks like a bot, so you know it's a bot.
Sure.
But you're always suspicious about, hey, is that really a bot? This sounds too human, because it's phenomenal. I'll let you play with it one of these days, and you can actually talk to our bots about anything. You can go off topic. You can talk about gastronomy. You can talk about good food, cinema, politics, anything you like, and it's a bot that has kind of a sense of humor. So it's kind of weird that you can go that far with an artificial intelligence form of life, but you can. But it doesn't stop there. At a certain point, the bot will pass you over to a relationship manager that will then take it to another level. But that's, for example, a way to utilize AI effectively and efficiently without creating any frustration in the user or in the partner, but actually creating a sense of awe and inspiration, because that's what you're left with. So, my goodness, this was amazing.
Well, I think that's very important, because at the end of the day, you need to feel as if you are connected to somebody that understands you, as such. Now, unfortunately, we're coming up to the end of the segment, Carlo, but I'm going to have you back on because there's so much more that we can talk about. But it's one of the things I just want to touch on real quick is, how do you engage? So our listeners, our viewers out there, as such, they're listening to this, I'm sure, and going, okay, I can check the box on various things that Carlo's just talked about. What is the process that you take a prospect? So somebody who calls in and says, "Hey, I have a project." Will you actually spend some time with them, understanding what they're looking for? How does that work?
Oh yeah, we do a lot of that. We love that. We love to understand the particular cases that each company or each business leader has. And what we do is that we actually, from the get-go, after the cordialities, we jump into creating a business plan together. And we have a special tool it's a really powerful tool that we've developed and refined over these decades that enables you to put in a certain number of assumptions taken from the customer's own reality. So we're not putting in dumb assumptions. Couple it with some other assumptions that come in from our experience, right? And then that actually shows how channel can be utilized to grow your revenue dramatically in some cases, and in some cases not. But it's a tool that will tell you what the ultimate reality that you can achieve through channel looks like. And insofar as a collaboration with Gorilla, it also shows essentially for every dollar that you spend with Gorilla, how many dollars you get back. And typically the ratio there is between 10 and 50, right? And so it can be very, very good. I mean, with some of our clients, it's exceeded the $50 back for every dollar spent. So it can be very powerful. I don't want to say that happens all the time. These are big numbers. I mean, one case study. I mean, we've worked a lot with IBM, and we have a published case study, and we've driven more than $500 million worth of revenue for IBM per annum over a period of many, many years. And so it's a kind of concept that really has legs, and it's all number driven. We're data driven. The process is number driven, and I'd be so happy to spend some time with your audience to talk about this further if anybody's interested.
Well, I'm going to put all the details on, of course, the website on Business Class News, and this interview is going to go out on all our distribution channels as such. And one of the things I think we've all got to think about is how do I maximize what I have today? How can I sort of be nimble like you guys were in the early days and change, but you're going to need a partner like yourself to come in and really. So if you guys, I'm listening now, I'm talking to the audience. If you guys have got a project, that you've got, and you really want to at least have a conversation with Gorilla Technologies. As I say, I'll put all the information onto the website, and then they can get in touch. And Carlo and your team, you've got a fantastic team all over the country, as you say, and you've got branches throughout the world, which is great. One of the things that I just want to close up on is we talked about the partnerships that is very important as such. But what is the key thing that you're seeing out there at the moment with everything crazy thing that's going on? What is the one thing that I think you're seeing out there that you feel that Gorilla can really help our audience with, would you say?
Well, these days with coronavirus, unfortunately, being so dominant still in the world and kind of not quite letting up, the traditional methods of marketing that included, for instance, trade shows are becoming impossible to follow, and so therefore there's a big movement towards digital marketing, and that is what we do. And so we certainly, what we can do is that we can help businesses pivot from face-to-face type trade show type marketing to become very active and very successful with digital marketing and digital means. We have some real know-how and skill set. And whether you have a partner channel or not, we can, we as a global marketing agency, we can certainly help you to make that pivot. We'd be very glad to support anybody that needs to go through that process.
Well, Carlo, I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate you spending the time with me today. As I say, there's tons of other topics I want to bring you back on, so I'm gonna make sure that I can grab some more of your time if you don't mind. But thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. This was really, really wonderful. It's so nice to get to talk to you, Carl. You take care.
Fantastic. Well, that was Carlo Breda, of course, the CEO of Gorilla Technologies, and what a great conversation. I mean, as I say, I've always been in the tech field and working with different VARs and resellers, etc., and bringing people together. So this conversation was really enjoyable because it was really in the sweet spot of where I used to live as such. And now I have conversations with CEOs, CTOs all over the world that could really relate to what Carlo just has talked about. So as I say, I'll put all the information on the website on businessclassnews.com. And also, as I always say at the end of my shows, go out there, make some money, but have some fun. Enjoy and be safe. Have a good day. Bye-bye.